Hi guys, welcome to another lesson. This week we will be looking at how a river takes its course, which says in the title, meaning we're going to have a look at how a river flows, how it changes from start to finish, and when we say course, we mean it's kind of its path and how it flows. Okay, so a river's course is its path and how it flows from start to finish. So we're looking at the different characteristics of that this week. To start off, what I want you to do is try and unjumble these three words for me. So I've jumbled up three keywords to do with rivers, and I want you to see if you can unjumble them for me to begin with. And then if you can, for some extra points, you can see and try and tell me what each term means. Okay, so once you've unscrambled it, think about that word, think about where you've heard it and how we've used it before, and tell me what it means. Okay, so straight into task one. Pause me here and start that on your Word documents or your PowerPoints or your paper or whatever you're doing it on. Okay, moving on. So there's the answers for you. So the first one was source, the second one was mouth, and the last one was valley. We haven't really spoken about valleys that much, but I thought I'd throw in a bit of a curveball, see if anyone got it. And then there's the meanings underneath there. So source is the starting point of a river. It's always up high, it's always in mountains and hills. That's where a river starts. A mouth is where the river meets the sea, so the end of the river. And a valley is an area of lower land between two hills and mountains, normally with a river running through it. Okay, so there's some of those key terms just as a recap. Right, so looking at our objectives for this week, we're going to have a look at rivers and their changes, okay, and how they change downstream. So we're going to have a look at a river valleys, looking at graphs to show the long profile of a river, which just means the course of a river, its journey from start to finish. And we're going to have a look at explaining those changes and see if we can put it into our own words. So we are going to just quickly imagine to yourself, without looking at any pictures or Google or anything like that, just in your own head, imagine you're looking at a river from up high. Imagine you're in a helicopter or a plane or something, and you're looking at the whole length of a river from up high. That's called the long profile of a river, so the complete journey of a river from start to finish. What do you think the long profile of a river might look like from source to mouth, so from start to finish? What might it look like? So what I want you to do for task 2 is to draw or write, or both, how you think it might look from your thoughts. So you can do quick sketches. Again, this is geography, you don't have to be an artist, it doesn't have to be flawless, but I want you to just draw or write some words, or as I said, both, to think how that might look from your thoughts. What might you see? Any descriptive words you can put in there, or any drawings you can put in there would be brilliant. Okay, so if you're doing it on Word or PowerPoint, you can just do the writing if you can't find any drawing tools, but I've seen a few of you do drawings like on Word and PowerPoint, so if you can do that, please do. If not, just do the writing, and if you're on paper, then you can do a bit of both, or you can do one or the other, that's fine. So pause me here and do task 2. Okay, so this is what it would look like. It would look something like this. So main points being that a river always starts up high, so the source is always in a higher area of ground, so up in a mountain or up in hills, and it makes its way down to flatter land, or we might call it a lower gradient. Okay, that's a very geographical word, gradient, meaning how high or low land is. So if something's got a high gradient, it's up high. If something's got a lower gradient, it's down low, it's flatter land. The river itself gets much wider the further down it gets. So up in the source, we've got it's actually quite narrow up here, but then as we travel down, we see the river channel itself, how wide the river is, widening and widening till it gets to the mouth at its widest point where it meets the sea. Okay, so we've got all that. They're the main points to point out that it starts up high, makes its way down lower, and it gets wider as it travels down. Okay, we generally split the long profile of a river up into 3 parts. So we've got the upper part, the middle part, and the lower part, and we call those the courses. Okay, so this is the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. Okay, and we're going to go through that in a lot more detail during the lesson, but that's the first glimpse you would have got of that there. Okay, so just getting a bit familiar with how rivers generally look and how their kind of course would look, and their journeys as well, and their characteristics. So For task 3, what I want you to do is label the characteristics of a long profile of a river. Now, this picture I've put here, I've got a bigger version on the next slide, which I'll let you pause on for when you start this task. If you're doing it on like Word or PowerPoint, you can try and find a similar diagram on Google Images. If you just type in long profile of a river diagram or something like that on Google Images, it should come up, and find that and copy and paste it into your Word document or your PowerPoint. There is a characteristics bank on this sheet with loads of different words and describing words on there. What I want you to do, once you've found your diagram, or if you're doing it on paper, once you've drawn your diagram out, I want you to use those words, and if you need to use Google to define them, that's fine, or help you figure out what they mean, that's fine, but match those labels, those characteristics up to different parts of the diagram. Okay, yeah, I've put the large picture on the next slide, which I'll flick onto in a minute for when you do it. There is also an extension down here that label where you think you would find a waterfall along a river profile. Okay, just in your head, think about where you might find a waterfall on that profile and see if you can draw it in. Okay, so I'll go through one with you on the slide. I'll leave, and then when you do it, you can pause it on this slide here. So a V-shaped valley. Okay, that might be a completely new term to you, completely new. Okay, if you were to Google it, you'd be able to find out what it is, but since you've got me talking, a V-shaped valley is generally a very steep-sided valley that you will find at the start of a river, where you've got a lot of erosion from this bit of the river cutting down into the rock. Okay, so then you start to get really steep sides of a valley like that. We're going to go into that in more detail in the next few lessons anyway, but you would find a V-shaped valley up in the top of the mountain here, so you'd write V-shaped, my writing's awful, I'm doing it with a mouse, valley like that. Obviously a lot neater and a lot smaller than I've done it there. But as I said, if you need to use Google to figure out what some of these terms mean, then please do, because there will be, some of them will be quite new to a lot of you, so please use Google. But then to fill them in where you think you can on the diagram. If you don't get all of them, don't worry too much. Just let me know when you email me your work, and we can go through them, or I can email you some clearer guidance on what they mean. Okay, so pause me here and start task 3. Okay, so moving on, we have got a cross profile of a river. Okay, so imagine you have sliced a river profile into 3 pieces. So we talked about our upper course, our middle course, and our lower course on that diagram. Imagine you've sliced that diagram into 3 pieces like you would like a cake. Okay, and you're looking at it side on instead. You're looking at it as if you've sliced the earth in half, okay, or into 3 pieces. Think about the differences that you might see in each piece as you're looking at it side on. So we've got this cake here. I've put this here as kind of a 1, to make you hungry, and 2, to help you visualize what it would look like if you were to slice it. So imagine this is our river profile and we've just sliced it, and we can look at the earth side on like you would with the cake, and you can see the layers, something like that. Okay, when we know more about the layers, it can tell us more about that part of the river. So like a cake, from the outside of this cake you'd think it was all chocolate, but as we've sliced it, you can see that there's different flavors in there as well. So if we were to do that to a river, like in this diagram down here, we've got the cross profile for the 3 different courses. So in the upper course, if we were to slice it, we could see that the narrow river there is quite narrow, and that there's a lot of erosion going on because we've got this deep valley, this deep V-shaped valley here. Whereas if we move to the middle course and the land starts to get a bit flatter, we can see that the river channel is widening. Okay, so there might be some erosion this way, outwards instead of downwards. Okay, so we call that horizontal as opposed to vertical erosion. Again, we're going to go over erosion in the next few lessons. And then the lower course, where we've got the river at its widest point, would look like this, with a much wider channel and much lower ground. Okay, so just imagine that in your head. I've scribbled all over that, and I'm very sorry if that's distracting. But if that helps you visualize it, the whole cake analogy, then I've done something right. But don't worry if you don't get your head around that straight away, because it is quite hard to visualize. If you want to look up some videos on YouTube, just type in like cross profile of a river, things like that. There might be something better to help you visualize it on there if you're a bit stuck. Also, you can email me if you want any more guidance on that as well, and I can send you some links to some videos that might help. Okay, so all cross profiles will look roughly the same. The narrow river at the source in the high areas, and then getting wider and wider as the river moves down through the middle and lower course. So they all will look like that. All river profiles look vaguely the same. There might be some slightly different characteristics, but the overall pattern is the same on all of them. Okay, so that's something to just think about there as we move on. Okay, so just a quick fire question to test your understanding on that. Task 4, where is the channel wide and deep but on a medium gradient? So we said this word gradient means the height of the land. So if it's a flat or a high or a medium gradient, and the channel being the width of the river. So the channel is how wide the river is, and the gradient how high the land is. Okay, so where is the channel wide and deep but the gradient medium? Is that in the upper course, the middle course, or the lower course? So just write A, B or C for me on which one you think it is on task 4. So pause me here and quickly do that one. Okay, and moving on. So we've got a bit of reading to do. I'll read through this with you because there is a lot of jargon and a lot of kind of bit complicated words in here. So we are looking at why the river changes downstream. Okay, so how do those changes happen and why do they change from source to mouth? So we've got the velocity, which is the speed of the water, and the discharge, which is the amount of water of a river increases along its course. Okay, so a river gets faster and more water adds to it as it goes downhill, as it travels along its course. You will get more water being added to that river for smaller rivers and streams joining the larger river, and the amount of water in the river becomes larger, and the speed it travels at is faster. Okay, so as it moves from source, the water gets faster and the channel gets wider and deep to hold it all. Okay, so it starts eroding the rock around the river outwards and downwards to be able to hold all the water. In the upper course, the channel is shallow because erosion takes place vertically. Okay, so the channel being shallow means that it's not that deep. Okay, and erosion takes place vertically because it's cutting downwards as opposed to widening the river channel at that point, because there's not that much water in it. It's quite a thin river. It will generally erode down as opposed to outwards. Again, this can be very complicated, so don't worry if you don't get your head around it straight away. This is because the upper course, the rock is harder, so the valley sides are not widened out much by weathering and erosion, and velocity is quite fast. Okay, so because the rock is harder, generally in the upper course, and valley sides are not widened out as much by weathering erosion, and the channel being much narrower, it generally just cuts down instead of cutting the channel wider. In the middle course, the river is flowing through lower country. Okay, so the gradient starts to even out and get a bit flatter. The gradient is less steep, so the river begins to meander. So it starts to bend, starts to twist and turn a little bit, and erode laterally. Okay, so laterally means outwards as opposed to downwards. So it starts to widen the river channel into the valley sides. The rate of erosion increases as the rocks that make up the valley are softer, so the channel gets wider and deeper. So as you get into the middle course, you've got more water and softer rock. So all the water that's flowing down here will start to erode outwards like this to make the channel a lot wider, but it will also still be eroding downwards to make it deeper. Okay, and the lower course of the river flows through low-lying land. Okay, so it has a wide and deep channel because it's been eroded all this way down, and therefore there is less friction, resulting in very high velocity. So it's actually quite fast at this point, and the channel is always very wide and deep as it gets to the end of the river because it's eroded all the way down. Okay. As I said, that is a lot to take in one. If you need any extra support with that, please do email me. If you're just very confused by it all, please email me. And I can send over extra things for you to help you understand it, like videos and maybe diagrams and things like that might help. Okay, so if you need those, please do email me. So that's just a bit of reading to get your head around. If you need to read it again, pause me here and you can go through it again, see if you can get your head around it a bit better. If not, leave me playing and we'll go on to the next task. So task 5, watch this video to better understand how river changes from source to mouth. This video looks at the River Severn, which is the longest river in the UK. I've put the link here, I'll put it in the description box below the video upload on YouTube so you can get onto it as well. For each course, the upper, middle and lower, write a few sentences to describe how that course looks in the video. Okay, so you can write upper, and then maybe underline it, and underneath upper right from the video we can see the upper course is very blah blah blah. It also has blah because of blah. Okay, so whatever you see in the video, I just want you to describe what you can see. The guy in the video, when he's talking through it, will tell you when he's in the upper, middle and lower course, so it is quite straightforward, but just describing what you see as the video plays through. It's about 9 minutes long, so it's not too long, but I do want you to watch all of it. Okay, and it will help you to visualize what it looks like in real life as well. Okay, so pause me here, click on the link, open that video up and do that task for me, task 5. Okay, and last task, task 6, your plenary. So using only 3 sentences, describe the changing profile of a river and its valley from source to mouth. So in your own words, in 3 sentences, you could do a sentence on each part of the river, the upper, middle and the lower. Just describe the changes that you would see in the river and its valley from that source to the end of the river. Okay, so from source to mouth. So you could say 1 sentence would be on upper, 1 sentence would be on middle and 1 sentence would be on lower. You can even use your notes from the last task from the video, because you saw what you'd see changing as you went down the river on that anyway. So just 3 sentences to summarise what you'd see in the river changing from source to mouth. Okay, and then you are completely done. So make sure to save your work, send it to me by email or submit it on Teams, whichever one you've been doing. As I have said before, it's easier for me to mark your work when it's set on Teams, so if you can do that, please do. And if you've had any issues or anything, please let me know straight away by email so I can change it for other people as well. Please also complete the quiz, which link will be on ePraise, or if you can't access it, again, email me and I can send you over the link again. Okay, but that's it for this week, guys. Again, I think it was a pretty, as much as the content was probably a little bit more difficult, hopefully a little bit shorter, and people are dealing with the workload okay. If you're not, as I've said loads of times before, please email me and we can try and figure something out if you're not coping with the amount of work I'm setting well. Okay, but otherwise, thank you very much and I will talk to you next week.